The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to yet another edition of Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on this Friday evening, the Friday the 24th of January 2020, I believe corresponding to the 29th of Jamadul Awal 1441. As usual, broadcasting live from Luton Inspire FM 105.1 FM. And of course also broadcasting to our sister stations nationally: Sheffield, Link FM, Peterborough, Salam, Derby, Nottingham. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of our listeners out there in those lovely towns and cities. And of course also our greetings, warm greetings to anyone who's listening to us on the Inspire FM app, or of course tuned in via Facebook live stream. Try to get involved today. Try to speak to me today. Try to get your thoughts across to us today. We're going to be discussing a number of interesting topics. I want to hear from you, my listeners. 01582 481822 01582 481822. Share your thoughts and your opinions. 07779 481822 is the number for your SMS and your WhatsApp messages. But you know what? You can just call me. You can just call me, and I promise I'll have the most timid and most friendliest conversation with you, that you've ever had. So 01582 481822. I do prefer for you to speak to me directly, but if you want to send in the SMS, WhatsApp, feel free to do that also. Right, Jummah Mubarak for all of you out there. Inshallah, pray that the Friday has gone well. Ramadan countdown. I'm reminded, of course, of just a few months remaining before Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. So it's around the corner. Just before I quickly introduce to you the lineup for this evening that I've got in terms of the topics I'm going to be trying to discuss with my guests, with my panelists, and try to get input from my listeners. China's been making headlines now at the moment with the coronavirus, right? I don't know what you make of the coronavirus, but I was reading about it earlier. Of course, the death toll is rising, and a lot more countries around the world are becoming a lot more alert to the ongoing developments out in China. But I tell you what, I was reading a bit about the background to this coronavirus, and the early cases of this infection were traced to a South China seafood wholesale market where they were selling live animals, including bats and snakes. Oh my, that's quite alarming, right? Oh, I wouldn't like to be walking through that market. But anyway, I'm going to be speaking to a number of organizations this evening. I'm going to be speaking to CAGE. I'm going to be speaking to Islamic Human Rights Commission, and I've got a number of individuals, inshallah, in the studio with me or over the phone. We're going to be speaking to Naeem Mia, who's a QC, widely regarded as one of the leading criminal barristers practicing today. We've got Councillor Aslam Khan, and we've got local businessman and leading community figure, Janab. We've got Nisar Saab from Ideal Properties, hopefully joining me, making his first appearance, hopefully here in the studio, to discuss some of our lead stories. Number one, our lead story is terrorism laws. Now, you may want to just pay attention to this for a few moments. Government has announced recently that the terrorism laws are about to get tougher within weeks. They're about to get tougher. Now, a lot of you out there would have thought that we've already got draconian terrorist laws, and prevent being one of the toxic ones, right? So why do they need to get any tougher than they currently are already? That's the question I'm going to be asking. I'm speaking to CAGE in a few minutes. We're also going to be speaking to Islamic Human Rights Commission Masood Sharjah, and there's a question mark that's been raised. There's a question that's been raised: should the United States be prosecuted for genocide over its sanctions policy? Now, when I read that article, I thought, if you're going to start, where do you stop when it comes to the United States, right? Prosecute for genocide over its sanctions policies? What about all the other policies that you could potentially prosecute the US for, or for that matter India for, or for that matter Israel, or for that matter China, right? Russia. Where does the list stop? Where does it start? And is it even viable? Is it even viable in today's current age, when these are the particular specific countries that are running these institutions and controlling these institutions for their own purpose and on their own end, right? So that's a question for you to think about. I want to hear your thoughts on that. A couple of other stories very quickly that we're going to be covering. I'm going to be discussing later on in the second hour of the show shops and takeaways, right? Shops and takeaways, but a different perspective. Shops and takeaways, hygiene and health and safety, right? Hygiene and health and safety, right? So we're going to be discussing shops, takeaways, hygiene and health and safety. And I think you may have visited a lot of shops in your time, a lot of takeaways in your time. I want to know, what do you where do you consider, how do you consider that, how are we doing with regards to hygiene, health? All right, I want to know from you your personal experiences of shops and takeaways, and if you want to, I don't want to name any particular takeaways on live radio for obvious reasons, but I do want to hear your thoughts. Shops, takeaways, where do we stand as hygiene? Are we taking hygiene seriously? Do you think we're making an improvement, or is it getting worse, right? And we're going to be discussing that because there was a story on one of the takeaways that had its license taken away because of absolute abject and poor hygiene. Last but not least, very quickly, Luton has been named in the top 5 most affordable commuter towns. Right, top 5 most affordable commuter towns. We're going to be discussing with the deputy leader of the council, and we're going to be discussing with Nisar Sir from Ideal Properties. What does that mean for Luton? So that is the lineup, folks, for this evening. Right, let's move on to immediately to our our lead story, and that is, of course, the government announcing that the terrorism laws are to get tougher within weeks, right? Terrorism laws to get tougher within weeks. That's what the government vows. We're going to hopefully be speaking to an expert on terrorism laws and criminal law, and that is, of course, earlier I was mentioning QC Naeem Mia. We've got him on the line, but just a quick introduction, right? A lot of people were probably expecting this with the re-election of the Conservative Party. Probably not too many surprise. Not too many people will be surprised by that news. Maybe by the speed of the news, possibly. But of course, it was announced, and some of the measures that have been announced have been quite incredible. Quite incredible. I mean, lie detector tests. Lie detector tests. I mean, that sounds almost surreal, but let's go straight to the experts and let's get the opinion of the experts on this particular matter, right? So we've got Naeem Mia on the phone. So let me welcome Naeem Mia firstly to Friday Night Live and Inspire FM. I believe first time we're speaking to you, Naeem Saab. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Friday Night Live.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for the invitation.
Fantastic. All right. So, of course, you're the expert in this area, in this subject matter. I'm just reading your profile, regarded as one of the leading criminal barristers practicing today. Fantastic. Sounds brilliant. Now, some of the people might be surprised by the speed of some of this legislation that's actually being, discussed. Of course, there's the bill that's going to go to be put to Parliament in March. Of course, it's the events of November are being cited as a pretext for that. A lot of people are already complaining, and we were trying to get through to Cage, and we haven't been able to, with regards to the draconian legislation that already exists out there. Do you think this is one step too far? Or any surprises for you here, or were you expecting this?
I was expecting it, to be frank, in the wake of what happened at London Bridge with Usman Khan.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely surprised. It's a classic kind of knee-jerk reaction, and it seems to me to be ill thought out. The idea that somehow the unreliable method of lie detector tests is going to be introduced into some sort of assessment of whether or not somebody's been properly rehabilitated just seems absurd to me. And I have to say, it may very well be that that's just something that's been trailed in the press, but ultimately doesn't make its way onto the statute books, because everyone knows that these things are unreliable. And so to think that they may be used as some kind of assessment tool is just absurd, it seems to me.
Absolutely. So it's not just it's just not me, reading into a lie detector test. Are we for real, right? But I mean, there's been a number of other measures that have been announced. I mean, you're not going to be surprised to hear, police, funding is increased by 90 million. It seems like we've got plenty of money when it comes to counter-terrorism. They're suggesting, of course, longer prison sentences. They're suggesting, getting more imams on the salary books, to counter terrorism. I mean, lie detector test is one of the measures that has been proposed, plus the others. Is it? Do you, I know from your perspective, from a legal perspective, you're more in the business of protecting, and defending, or maybe prosecuting in that case. But do you really think this kind of legislation helps in this area?
Well, the legislation that's already in existence gives ample powers to the police, the courts, and the prosecuting authorities. So it seems to me that this is just overkill. Now, ramping up the sentences, for example, it's just not necessary. For example, on a dissemination case, which is if you have a document which is deemed to be terrorist in nature and it's published, so you send it on to somebody. Yeah, you're looking at sentences of 10 years and so on. So actually, it seems to me that you've got plenty of powers there already, and ramping it up in the way of sentencing powers is just not needed. On the Section 5, the maximum Section 5 is preparing for acts of terrorism. On Section 5, the maximum sentence is life. So actually, you've got ample sentencing powers already, and this really does seem to me to be a knee-jerk reaction. Yes, there may be the perception that there is a threat in the wake of what happened at London Bridge, for example. That points to the fact that there is, in some people's books, a live threat. But the reality is that these incidents are few and very far in between, thankfully. And committing the sort of policies that they are now proposing to such isolated incidents, which actually have far-reaching effects, seems ill thought out to me.
So, I mean, do you think it's a case of actually, almost end justifies the means in the sense that there's and a lot of people would argue that there's a deeper agenda behind a lot of these, political moves, right? In essence, because as you said, I mean, no one, a lot of people have condemned. No one condones what happened in November, but it was a knife attack, and we've had, you have knife attacks every single day of the year, right? But then to see, a specific community almost being targeted, as some people would argue, and as you say, with an increase of focus, increase of legislation, and everything else that's associated with it, it almost seems that there was already an agenda item that was being, prepared to be picked up.
Look, what's inescapable is that whilst you make the valid point that there are an alarming rise in knife attacks, the knife attack that happened on London Bridge is very different. And it's very different for the obvious reason that Usman Khan was a serving prisoner who'd been released following a conviction for a terrorism-related offence. That's the big difference between that knife attack and the other knife attacks that go on. And we can't ignore that.
Sure.
We've got to be realistic about it.
Yeah.
Does this policy point to a greater marginalisation or victimisation of a particular community, i.e. our community, the Muslim community?
Yeah.
Well, it certainly brings a spotlight to it. It certainly means that people are feeling more victimised as a result of it. And what's the pushback then? What is the community going to do as a result of this? I mean, there are so-called community leaders, there are Muslim organisations. Whether or not they were consulted on any of this, I simply don't know the answer. But it seems to me that if you are looking to tackle whatever kind of a problem it may be, in whichever community it may be, it's worthwhile having a dialogue with that community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of dialogue, we've managed to get through to brothers Kerry Bullivant from Cage, who is the Cage spokesman. Assalamu alaikum, brother Kerry, and welcome to Friday Night Live. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I want to go straight into this question of dialogue, with the community, of course. I mean, especially in light of the recent report that Cage has issued, Beyond Prevent, a real alternative to securitized policies, and discuss that in the background of terrorism laws to get tougher within weeks, government vows. I mean, what do you make of, further commitment to further terrorism laws, further, punitive measures against a particular community, and especially in light with, the report that you're issuing, which says your existing legislation and existing policies simply don't work and are not working?
Well, I think the evidence of that is in the fact that for the last almost 20 years now, we've consistently gone down the securitization route, where we have ramped up again and again the laws, kept on stiffening them, kept on creating new offences and new ways that these offences can be dealt with, and stiffer sentences time and again. And yet the problem is still continuing. Your other guest is entirely right. We need to actually get into a situation of dialogue by creating more legislation that seems to pick out one community, that seems to identify just the Muslims as these people are a problem. What you're doing is you're creating the narrative that the people that want to do harm to us, to our society, want, which is that we're not welcome here, we're not part of this society. And the way that this problem needs to be dealt with and should have been dealt with from the beginning is in a cooperative manner, in a manner as partners, where the Muslim community was brought on board and was listened to, and had an equal share in this discussion.
But Kerry,
what happened is,
Kerry,
they've seen criminal justice as the only tool to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, so I hear that point, and I see that Cage has issued an open letter to the Home Secretary, right? And then there's been the kind of line of discussion now for many years. But I mean, Prevent has been out there for a number of years. Is it a case that is just falling on deaf ears? And if so, what further can be done to really make this point? Because at the moment, it doesn't seem like a dialogue. It seems like a monologue, or at least a one-way communication. And it seems that the government's preferred option is just to drive through legislation and securitization.
I think Sorry, I was just going to say, Cherry, that one of the problems, it seems to me, is, and I speak as someone who's been doing terrorism-related offences for a number of years, and I've met many clients over the years charged with such offences. And I've obviously, therefore, been keeping a close eye on policy issues and developments in the field. But speaking as somebody who is a Muslim, it seems to me that one of the problems is that there is not one single authoritative organisation that is willing or able or even exists for that matter to actually engage with the powers that be. And so when you have a vacuum of people to talk to, a vacuum of people that are prepared to engage in dialogue, then the government has no, and I'm no fan of the Home Secretary, but the government then has nobody to engage in a dialogue with. That's the problem.
Well, I'm sure Kerry will push back on that, because I think the fact of the matter is government is very selective who it wants to engage with and where it engages, and we see that happening all the time with the many allegations and many responses from a lot of the grassroots organizations saying, well, these are not people who represent the community. But Kerry, a wider point. Of course, you've issued your the counter prevent, right? Beyond prevent report. What is the idea behind this? Beyond prevent report, and what are you suggesting apart from a two-way dialogue with government to address the problems of any potential terrorism that may exist in any community? What's your underlying message?
So fundamentally, what it comes down to is that the approach that needs to be taken with dealing with problems where they exist within the Muslim community, and not through a securitized approach and constantly trying to look at every Muslim through the lens of counter-terrorism, which is what we currently see with Prevent. Just a week ago, there was a paper that or guidelines that had to be withdrawn from the Met, which said that sort of believing that Muslims are being oppressed anywhere in the world is a sign of extremism.
That was incredible. Incredible.
So we're saying that you need to pull back from those sorts of pieces of that sort of approach and create a dialogue, create an approach where Muslims are at the forefront of that problem, where it does need dealing with. And we've been saying this for many, many years. There needs to be space to have these conversations. At the moment, because any mosque that was to do discussions of an overtly political nature, discussing what's been going on in the world, what's happening, they're suddenly going to be in the spotlight and attacked, as we've seen with people like Lewisham Mosque and Sheikh Shakil Beg, and you get slanders against them. And then that creates a situation where other mosques don't want to go down that path. And if children and young people have questions, they're interested in things, they need to find out about things, they can't go to their imam, they can't go to their community, they can't go to the people of knowledge, the elders around them that have an actual understanding of these things, and they're forced onto the internet, into the arms of people wwho are very dangerous.
All right, so gents, we've got about
more open discussions.
So we've got about 4 minutes. So very quickly, and Naeem, a question for you is in terms of, I mean, you're following, the terrorism legislation, criminal law, etc. What is the trend that you're seeing? And I wouldn't be surprised if you say it's a very busy period for you in terms of what we're seeing at the moment. And Kerry, the question for you is, Naeem had a valid point, which is, is there an I mean, with this kind of issue, I would have expected a very broad consensus within the Muslim community of coming together with some, consolidated and a unified, at least agreement on core issues, so that that you've got a core set of principles to actually engage with the government on, right, or a body that can engage the government on. And Naeem makes a valid point that we still don't seem to have that, right? So perhaps some clarity there, Kerry, in terms of what is happening in that area. But Naeem, very quickly, firstly to you in terms of the trends of what we're seeing at the moment.
Well, what we're seeing is a Home Secretary who is completely untroubled by engaging with any kind of dialogue and feels that it's appropriate to go down the path that she's going. The result of that is that you have a community that is increasingly feeling victimized. The solution, it seems to me, or one of the solutions, is that there needs to be an authoritative body that speaks for all sections of our community, that can engage in dialogue. And at the moment, we don't have that.
Right. So, Kerry, that question, authoritative body, I mean, this work has been going on at grassroots levels, across, cross-pollination, across the other organizations for a long time. Where are we in being able to get across consensus?
Well, ironically, there is consensus on certain issues, certainly in dealing with a lot of these CT issues, it's got to be remembered that our community is not one single homogenous group, and it's very hard to get us to agree on a lot of topics. But the big problem here isn't actually agreement between the Muslims, because, as I said, with issues of CT, by and large, even between organisations like MEND, MCB, CAGE, which account for a huge number of Muslims, there is agreement for the most part on the approach that we need to be taking. Right. The problem is that the government refuses to engage with any of those organisations on these issues, and we saw that with the MCB. The MCB have generally been an umbrella body that were given a seat at the table for a long time.
Yeah.
Until even they were decided and pushed out for being too radical.
Okay.
And this is the MCB we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because the government felt that they would rather engage with people like William.
Exactly. So, Kerry, I've got 30 seconds left. Where do you want to go with your report beyond prevent? So you've issued this report, you've issued your guidelines. Of course, you've issued it for a particular target audience. What's your intended aim from your points on that report?
Ideally, for people like myself and Cage and for your other guests to not have a job in this area, we shouldn't be dealing with this for a security approach, for a criminal justice approach at all of the time. And we need to deal with this in a collaborative approach that deals with communication and gets down to the core of the issues and understands that we are all equal citizens and not just a problem suspect community.
All right, thank you very much. On that note, gentlemen, Naeem Mia, QC, and Kerry Bullivan, a spokesman for Cage, thank you very much, chaps. And unfortunately, we've run out of time for this story. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Naimia QC, Brother Kerry from Bullivan, from Cage, giving us their perspective. We're going to discuss that when we come back, inshallah, from the commercial break. You are with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, Friday Night Live. We're going to go into commercial break. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Until then, don't go away. I want to get your thoughts on tougher legislation that the government is vowing against terrorism, on terrorism laws. Until then, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on this evening, Friday the 24th of January, and now we've just gone past 6:30 this evening, but we have kicked off the show and we have been discussing, first story of this evening was government intent on introducing tougher terrorism laws within weeks, right? There's going to be this bill that's going to be proposed in March, I believe, in the Houses of Parliament. And you heard the opinions from Kerry Bullivan, who's a Cage spokesman, and also from QC Naeem Mia. What did you make of this, right? What did you make of that conversation? 01582 481822. I want to hear your thoughts. In particularly, what do you make of the introduction to lie detectors? Lie detectors. I mean, it sounds like a scene out of the Hollywood movies, right? 07779 481822. 07779 481822. Right? That's a message for your SMS and text messages. Now, listen. Of course, the internet world is a lot more vibrant, than some of my listeners. But I'm optimistic that we're going to get some feedback from my listeners. So I just typed in lie detector test, and I thought, let me see what comes up with this. And it's brilliant. I mean, I've got some headlines there. Lie detector tests for terrorist convicts are just a Hollywood stunt. Just a Hollywood stunt. Right, government terror advisor warns no magic test to stop reoffending. How on earth would you expect that? And some of the tweets are fantastic. Should politicians be subject to lie detector tests? Right? Should politicians be subject to lie detector tests? Yes, please. Please start with Boris Johnson, and that's the point. That's the point. Right, so I want to hear your thoughts on 1582 481822 0779 481822. Just another Hollywood stunt, right, to get a bit more publicity on this particular story. As per the comments, both unified on this, Kerry and QC Naeem Mia. What is really required is a two-way engagement, two-way conversation, and a genuine conversation with grassroots Muslim community or any other community to discuss this issue, and not just a superficial approach to select the handful from within the wider community that may echo some palatable points that you wanna hear. right? So I think that's what we're seeing. We've seen a very disingenuine approach, and I think that was the point that was being made earlier. All right, we're going to move on to our next story. Next story, we're going to be discussing an interesting article that caught my attention, and I thought let's pick this up and have a conversation on this particular story. I mean, where do we go with this, right? The US should be prosecuted, says the article. The US should be prosecuted. I mean, try prosecuting it for anything, but hang on, it should actually be prosecuted for genocide over its sanctions policy. Now, we know that the US sanctions policy has been despicable, deplorable, inhumane for decades on end. I mean, who can ever forget the infamous statement of Madeleine Albright when she was asked with regards to the sanctions policy in Iraq that was leading to the deaths of thousands and thousands and thousands of Iraqi children, is it a price worth paying? And she openly and blatantly said yes. Right, so that is the United States attitude, right, when it comes to its, it comes to its agenda. But then there was a wider question that came to my mind, and we're going to be speaking to someone who's going to hopefully address some of these questions that are at least come in my mind. I want to hear, what my listeners think, right? Which is, where do you start and where would you stop? Trying to prosecute. I mean, and who would you prosecute? Is it just the US? What about Blair? What about the UK? What about the Bushes before that? Obama, of course, Netanyahu, Modi, the Gulf rulers, and the list would just continue and continue and continue. Do we really have any ray of hope in being able to prosecute the very same people who not only, have legislation to ensure that they're immune and they're protected, right, but also chair and govern the very same institutions which we're going to try to use to prosecute them? All right, let's get some light shed on this particular subject matter, because I think it's an interesting argument. And we've got Brother Masood Sharjah. Fantastic to have you on the line, Brother Masood, from Islamic Human Rights Commission. You hear my predicament and my thoughts. What do you think, Brother Masood?
Yeah, first of all, assalamu alaikum, and it's a pleasure being with you. Look, I mean, as you said, this is an issue that needs to be addressed urgently, and we had a program which is Genocide Memorial, and we look at all genocide and all the man's inhumanity to man, not just selective one or two. We go back to sort of 100 million who died as a result of the slavery. What happened to indigenous population in United States and Americas, and also Australia, because they're all human, and is this a Islamic Human Rights Commission kind of initiative, the Genocide Memorial Day, or is this an international thing? Yes, it is. It is, and this year was the 7th year, and it's held at 7 different countries around the world, including Mexico and many others. Now, the thing is this, that within that context, it's not just good enough to remember sort of those who perish as a result of genocide. Yeah. But we need to find a way to stop it for the future. And what we argue is one of the genocidal acts and genocide is committed by starvation, by sanctions. Yes. I mean, look, you mentioned Iraq. I mean, Madeleine Albright was asked 500,000 children died as a result of sanction at the time of Saddam. Yes. Was that justifiable? And she said yes. Yes. I mean, 500,000 children. I mean, the issue here is that, in war, as horrifying as it is, there is a proportion of soldiers who die, and there is a proportion of civilians who die. Yes. But as a result of sanction, it's actually always civilians who die, and the most deprived section of the society. Yes. Children, people who have got less financial means, and et cetera, et cetera. Those who are ill, those who need medicine. And this is not something historical. It's happening right now in Venezuela. It's happening right now in Yemen. It's happening right now in many parts of the world. I mean, there are sanctions being implemented by United States right across the globe, and individually decide that this sanctions is going to be implemented, and then people die. People die in large numbers, and it's not considered as an act of war or even war crime. If 500,000 children are targeted and killed in the war, this is genocide.
Yeah.
But when they do it at the time of so-called peace, with these artificial sanctions force, then there is, under international law and the humanitarian law, there is really nothing to be answered for. And we were arguing that now that sanctions have become almost the preferred sort of tool by powers, we need to have a change in the attitude and change in the way we look at this, and indeed bring those who caused the death of so many innocent people to account.
Yeah, I mean that's the point, Brother Masood. I think it's a fantastic initiative. I think it's a fantastic message. It will resonate with humanity at large, and I think the world is not oblivious to the American exceptionalism that we have seen over the last number of decades. Right, almost the unilateral police state can go ahead and do whatever it likes without any recount to justice and accountability. But I mean, isn't that the point, that they actually, as they said, the victors write history, right? And these victors are the ones who are getting away with all of this, because they're the ones who control government, control institutions, control the very bodies that almost we would be using as a vehicle to try to criminalize the people who are actually carrying out those who are the perpetrators in the first place.
Well, I think. First of all, I think our responsibility is to highlight these things.
Correct.
And then also, I would say that the United States is not as powerful as it thinks it is. And if anything, we could argue that the power of United States is slipping away. And in some ways, this is why United States has become more dangerous, because it hasn't got the power that it did have before, but it wants to maintain its superiority. And so therefore it commits these sort of acts. And these sanctions are not just regarding Venezuela and Iran and Turkey and so forth. Recently they actually put sanction on Germany and Russia over the gas pipeline. They're going completely bonkers. They're actually threatening Europe and elsewhere in the world. And this is because they don't have the power that they had before. They don't have the moral authority either. And I think, we're going to see more dangerous actions by the United States in this current decline.
So Masood, just clarify for our listeners. So, I mean, America is known for imposing tariffs and imposing additional taxation, with the China wars, trade wars with China, for example, with some of the other European nations that you've mentioned. When it comes to sanctions, is that something that America can do unilaterally as a state against another state, or is it something that they normally have to legislate through the United Nations, for example?
Well, sanctions should be going through the United Nations, and currently I'm putting a letter together to get others to sign. But I think even United Nations is not there to create wars. Is there to bring peace.
I mean, a lot of people would say they're not sure what it's there for, to be honest with you. But okay, fair enough.
Well,
you propose. You're an optimist, I think. You propose peace. But
no, I'm not an optimist. But the point is this: that United Nations is incompetent of doing anything. I agree with that. But it cannot go against its own aims and objectives. And that is, if it cannot do anything to help, it should not create an environment where 500,000 children will be killed. But I think the fact is this, that the United States is acting in bullying position when it puts sanctions on its own authority rather than authority of the UN. And I think the problem goes far beyond sanctions, as you mentioned is the issue of tariffs. Is the issue that the current administration under Trump, it's gone completely mad. It's undermining every commitment that the United States has got, be it environment or anything else, and then also internally. It hasn't even got the support of its own people. The United States is divided right now in a way that it has never been before.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of the biggest problems that we have, Masood Sharjah, is that, you've got the international so-called institutions, UN, World Bank, IMF, and affiliated bodies, and associations, and these are all, managed and manipulated. They've got the rights of power, rights of veto, etc. So there's not much you're going to get from these institutions at all. Now, when I look to the Muslim world, and a lot of these are Muslim-related issues, there's a lot of humanitarian issues here, wider points, and I totally agree with you. But you would expect the Muslim nations to use their kind of institutions, to be a conscience, to be a voice, and represent and particularly articulate cases for the Rohingya Muslims, or case, for the Xinjiang Muslims, or a case for, some of the other humanitarian issues around the world. But they seem to be more impotent than even the ones that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, you're absolutely right that there is a huge problem with international institutions, everything from the International Court, UN, World Bank, all these. And they're all colonial tools. And they're not really there to function in the way that most ordinary people expect them. But having said that, we need to have international laws to implement. We can't live in the law of jungle. So what is, we need to have something much more workable, much more supported, something that is not based on colonialism and so forth, and we need to work towards that. But when it comes to the issue of the Muslim world, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, with the exception of a very few, the rest of them are part of the problem. Not the solution. There is right now, some of these deaths and the sanctions and blockades are being done by so-called Muslims. I mean, the Gulf states are actually doing it to Qatar.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a colleague.
Incredible.
It is absurd. Or what is happening in Yemen. I mean, political differences aside, you can't create a situation that even the most conservative estimate is that 1 million people are going to perish as a result of disease and the blockage of food and medicine. Where in Islam can you justify such a thing? Absolutely. Or where in any principle you could justify such a thing?
And it wasn't the case that recently it was Gambia that actually went, was it to the United Nations and raised the case of Myanmar and the Rohingya Muslims? I believe it was.
Yeah, but I mean, look, we should praise them for doing that. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the Rohingya Muslims are not just dying as a result of ethnic cleansing by Myanmar government. They're dying because of the way they're being treated in Bangladesh and elsewhere in the Muslim world. We are not even supporting them on a humanitarian basis, let alone standing up. I mean, look, with the money that being spent to kill people in Yemen, you could have stopped the issue of the Myanmar in 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Last quick question, if I may, Masood Sharjah. I really appreciate your time this evening. I mean, with all of these problems that we've cited, nevertheless, the key point is that we have to raise public awareness. We have to, appeal to humanitarian conscience, right? And we have to, address, this bullying tactics of these colonialist individuals or institutions. So, and you will find a lot of apathy and a lot of support with a lot of humanity out there, right? And that's the case that we still have to press ahead, with the tools and apparatus that's available to us as a means of raising that awareness, right? So how have you found that engagement, in particular? I mean, you've had this conference in London, the GMD conference, Genocide Memorial Day conference, and you've had participants. Tell us more about, what are you getting back from people who are coming to this?
Well, I mean, a lot of people rising up to these challenges, and we every year this conference deals with different issues.
Right.
We have dealt with issues like weapons of mass destruction as a tool of genocide, including atomic weapons and chemical weapons and so forth. We have dealt with the issue of demonization and creating environmental hate as a preceding factor to genocide, and many other issues, and there's a lot of support there. And we also were planning, we planned material for teaching in the schools, and that was available through Times education supplements and so forth. But what happened in the last 2 days and after our last conference, the Jewish Chronicle started doing an article and accusing us of anti-Semitism because we organized this genocide. And the argument is two things. One is why we are being supportive and we're saying that genocidal acts are being taken, implemented against the Palestinians. And the second thing was that, they say that we should only deal with the issue of Holocaust and genocide that took place after the Holocaust. We should not talk about man in humanity to man before. We should shut up over the killing, almost destroying sort of the whole population of indigenous people in Americas and in Australia, what they did to Algerians, the famine of, the famine that took place in both Ireland and elsewhere, and goes on and on and on. Right. Now, to me, I think, any human being is as valuable as any other human being. And if we are going to deal with this thing, we need to be not choosing. And, the fact of the matter is, yes, there was killing of and commitment of the genocide by the Nazis, and we address that, without any shame or favor. But we also address everything else.
Absolutely.
And I think there is an issue that there are certain people who want to use the issue of Holocaust for a political sympathy, to justify sort of injustices which are taking place in that region. And I think we need to also combat that, and we need to all come together, human beings, as Muslims, Jews, Christians, people of all faith, people of none, because this is an issue that addresses the humanity. Absolutely. And indeed, this is what we do every year. Many people who come forward are from all different backgrounds, including very large number of people from the Jewish community. But the Zionists are not happy, and they're basically making complaints to the extent that they have put pressure on Time Supplement to stop putting our lessons that we have done for Bosnia and elsewhere. Right. But this is a battle that unfortunately goes on, and we need to sort of continue doing Amr al-Ma'ruf Nahy al-Munkar and sort of educate ourselves and others.
No, fantastic. And you took the last question from my mouth, which was the cross-representation in these memorial conferences from other faiths and other organizations, and I think you just already answered that. And I guess the trend of a lot of these conscious and conscientious writers and academics and authors is fast increasing, and you'd be surprised at how many people are joining hands on such issues and initiatives across faiths and geographies, right? And I think that's what you probably are seeing in terms of the attendees and the people that are participating in this conference, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, these 5 countries, which was Mexico, Switzerland, Belgium, and Holland, and UK, with the exception of one of them, the rest of them were being organized by people of other states, and you know, it wasn't organized by Muslims there. And I think that's the whole beauty of it. You know, this is the issue of addressing humanity, which from us Muslim perspective is our duty, but it's not something that it's the, you know, protecting the humanity is something that we need to bring everyone on board.
All right, Masood Sharjah, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's been brilliant talking to you. Thank you very much once again. Masood Sharjah from the Islamic Chair of Islamic Human Rights Commission. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakallahu feek.
Okay, listeners, that was Masood Sharjah. I was given a producer's note to say he's only available for 10 minutes, but mashallah, we managed to get it extended for the last 20 minutes. So really appreciate your time this evening, Masood Sharjah. And we were discussing, should the US be prosecuted for genocide over its sanctions policy? Now, my listeners, right, a lot of my listeners will be able to remember the days of the Gulf War. Many of you would have remembered the days of Madeleine Albright, that infamous, you know, absolute, almost inhumane statement, and how she could just sit there and make that statement that a policy which has taken the lives of 500,000 innocent children is a price worth paying. I mean, the callousness of that woman is incredible, absolutely incredible, right? And you know, a great initiative by the Islamic Human Rights Commission, Genocide Memorial Day. And I think the point that was being made is genocide, irrespective of whether it's a Muslim or a non-Muslim or any person of any faith. Genocide is genocide, and it's something which is abhorrent in Islam, and we know that very clearly, categorically. It seems like some people have got almost an opinionated stance that genocide can only mean when it's discussed in the context of a particular ethnicity. I'm not sure if that's what Masood Sharjah was alluding to, but anyway, I mean the point is, should the US be prosecuted? I mean, that's the question I'm putting out there. I mean, you know, it's not just the US, is it? I mean, where do you stop? Where does that list stop? And we see it's almost a free reign for Russia today in Syria. It's a free reign for China in Xinjiang province. It's a free reign for Netanyahu in Palestine. It's a free reign for Modi in Kashmir. It's a free reign. It continues, right? And that is the point. How do we bring these people to accountability? 01582481822. I want to speak to one of my listeners. I want to hear your thoughts. 01582481822. 07779481822. If you've got an idea, if you've got a thought, 07779481822 for your SMS or WhatsApp messages. We're going to be back in a couple of minutes when we come back from the commercial break, and I'm going to be discussing shops, takeaways, and hygiene. Right? I'm sure you've popped into your local takeaway, you've popped into your local shop, and you've thought woeful hygiene, right? Or is it actually getting better? What is the trend? I want to hear your thoughts. We're going to be discussing that in the next half an hour, and plus how Luton is fast becoming one of the leading commuter towns in the region outside London. All of that next in the next hour, inshallah. We're going to go into commercial break. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go away. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz and you're listening to an Inspire FM podcast.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on this evening, Friday the 24th of January. It's just gone past 7 p.m. We've already gone through our first hour of the show. Some interesting conversations that we've been having with some experts. We've been discussing terrorism laws are to get tougher within weeks, the government has vowed. and in particularly the weird idea, very, very strange idea of introducing lie detector tests. I mean, it's incredible stuff. You'd think it's a Hollywood story, but it's in fact what's been, touted and discussed. And then also, should the US be prosecuted for genocide over its sanctions policy? So that was an interesting story. I had a lovely conversation with Masood Sharjah from the Islamic Human Rights Commission for over about 20 minutes there in the first hour. So that was the first hour. We are going to be moving on to the next hour. I want to just repeat my number because I want to speak to some of my listeners. 01582 481 number here in the studio 07779 481 822 is the number for your SMS WhatsApp messages. We're going to be moving on to our next story. And the next story is an interesting story. It caught my headlines earlier this week. I think there was a particular takeaway that was found to be in flagrant, violation of a lot of hygiene and health and safety laws and legislation. I think it was shut down. I couldn't find the story once I tried to go back to find that particular story. But anyway, it was later shut down, I believe. But that made me ask a wider question, right? And that's addressing this issue of our shops, our takeaways in Bury Park, and not when I say our shops, but just generally shops, takeaways, places of food, and how seriously are we taking hygiene? How seriously are we taking health, right? I know it's actually becoming a more important issue now because there's obviously a lot of legislation surrounding it. There's a lot of penalties surrounding it. There's a lot of financial penalties surrounding it. So it's in our interest to take it seriously. But are we finding a trend that is indicating that the problem is getting better? Or is it a case of we still are where we are, many years ago? Have the attitudes changed, or is it similar kind of attitudes of a few years ago? Okay, with me in this, not with me on the studio, but with me hopefully on the phone is Liz Bailey, who's the commercial regulatory manager, I believe, for the Luton Borough Council. So we're going to be speaking to Liz, and I believe we're going to have a few moments of Councillor Aslam Khan's time this evening, who I believe is at the airport on his way out. So I'm going to hopefully be able to speak to him for a couple of minutes only. But that's the introduction. Let's go straight over to my guests. We've got Councillor Aslam Khan and we've got Liz Bailey. Both of you, thank you very much for your time this evening. And let me just go straight to Councillor Aslam Khan firstly, because I know Aslam Saab, thank you very much for your time. I know you're about to travel away, currently at the airport potentially. I don't know if you heard the introduction, but the question I'm asking is it a problem that's getting better? I.e., we're dealing with the issue and we're seeing results and we're seeing a positive trend, or is it, a kind of an issue where we're still seeing quite a lot of violations when it comes to health and hygiene and our takeaways and our shops, Aslam Saab?
I think, look, by and large, most of the restaurants are rated good in our town. However, there is a problem. You might have seen in papers. We take food standards very seriously here in Luton. Although we do work with the restaurant owners or fast food chain and trying to provide support and advice as much as we can. But some people fail to comply. They don't take food hygiene seriously. And as you would know, it does possess serious health risks. People can get food poisoning at times, could sort of get other serious bacteria such as MRSA, and it could be brain damaging. So people need to really take food hygiene very, very seriously and comply with the regulation. But answer to your question, majority of the providers do work closely with us, and we do provide them with the rating. And I would encourage all the customers to do check because when they do get ratings, they do get stickers, which the restaurant owners can display that whether on the windows or in front of the tills. And that's something that we're encouraging all our customers to do that.
Yeah, so I mean that's definitely something that in the recent years has become a lot more visible in a lot of those takeaways, and I think that's generally reassuring for a lot of the public that of course go and engage in in buying food items from these vendors. But I mean, just tell me, Aslam Saab, is the food hygiene rating and certification, is that a mandatory requirement from these food vendors, or is that a kind of a non-mandatory?
When you do open up any business, you are required to obtain health and safety certificates. So you would imagine that they would have gone through training, and as well as training their staff. And they need to maintain cleanliness at all times. So quite often what happens is that when the restaurants are open or takeaways are open, and during the period of time, there's a neglect. So, they don't maintain cleanliness, cleaning, grease builds up, and because of grease, and if the worktops or fires or even ceilings, if they come in contact with food, certainly sometimes you can see the bacteria. A lot of the time, bacteria is something you can't be seen. So you've got to then put checks and measures in place. You can work with providers, whether it's Luton Borough Council or other certified pest controls who can come in and so do those checks, and so whether you're meeting standards or not. And our trading standard does do inspection, sometimes random and sometimes planned, and we do allow people to rectify the situation if they're breaching the code or standards. But a lot of the time, for those business closures, we hate to close any business, but if they fail to comply, then we will act very strictly. And we have done so where people have not complied.
Right. I mean, I saw one headline which said there are still 14 takeaways in Luton with a 0 or a 1-star food hygiene rating. And I don't know 14 out of how many, but that would still suggest quite a considerable number. I'm not too sure where that headline was, or whether that was recent or it's been some time with regards to that. It seems like there is still a problem, obviously prevalent, and then of course there was a story only this week in the press that caught my attention. Do you think, Aslam Khan Sahib, I want to get a last question in for you before I go to Liz, and I know you're travelling, so I want to let you go and enjoy your travel plans as opposed to speaking to me this evening. I don't want to hold on to you for too long, but are you sensing, Aslam Sahib, are you comfortable that the message is getting out there and the response, and in your interaction with business owners, and you've got a lot of interaction with the community members from different ethnicities, that the message is getting there clearly to them? Are you seeing that? Are you happy with the response that you're seeing?
Well, clearly, with some of these businesses, message hasn't got across, but with these closures, I think we send a strong message for those people that you have to take food hygiene very, very seriously. And if you need support and help, the support help is available. Now, a lot of the time, our providers, whether they may be in Bury Park or in town centre, over time, when they're overwhelmed with work and business, they do sort of take sight of food hygiene, and that's something that we will not compromise. And so you have seen in the papers, and recently we have made closures, but all I would say is that it's a responsibility of everyone. It shouldn't be down to Luton Borough Council going and doing checks. There are some basic standards that every restaurant owner or fast food owner should uphold, and that's something that they should train their staff. And ultimately it's going to impact your business. If you have good and clean environment, you will attract more business. And the ratings that we have are 0 to 5, and there are a lot of businesses out there who have 5 ratings. All we're saying is that if the customers do inquire from the restaurants or takeaways they actually go and purchase food from, to ask them, to challenge them and see what ratings they are and why they're not improving.
Right, fantastic. Councillor Aslam Khan, of course, portfolio holder for trading standards. I really appreciate your time this evening, and all the best for the travel plans that you've got up ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sahib. All right, so I just wanted to get the councillors a couple of minutes valuable input into this conversation, and I really want to firstly apologise to Liz Bailey and also thank her for her absolute patience over the last couple of minutes listening to Councillor Sahib. Liz, welcome to Friday Night Live, and thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you ever so much for inviting me to speak.
You're welcome. Yeah. Fantastic. So I understand you're the commercial regulatory manager, right? So for the Luton Borough Council, right? So give our listeners a bit of an overview. What does that mean, and what does that entail, Liz, in the subject matter that we're discussing, health and hygiene?
Well, the team is the team that's responsible for carrying out routine food hygiene inspections of all of our food premises in the borough. We've got over 1,500 businesses registered with us, ranging from shops to schools to care homes, the hospital, takeaways, restaurants, anywhere that sells food. Obviously needs to be registered and inspected by law. And what I'd like to also get across to listeners is if you're operating a food business from your home and you're selling food on Instagram or Facebook, that also needs to be registered and inspected by us. And for anyone out there that's purchasing food via social media sites, do challenge who you're buying your food from. Are they registered? Because that is obviously an unseen market out there. And it's important that we get into those kitchens and make sure that things are being prepared safely. But, it's not all bad news. Obviously, the press like to pick up on the prosecutions, but, 92% of our businesses in Luton do have a rating of 3 or more, and 57 have a rating of 5 or more. Obviously, it's the 8%, which is approximately 88, that, we're working with to improve, and we are seeing a shift in food hygiene ratings. We do know publicly that people want to be able to eat in a 4 or a 5, and good ratings are good for business. If you've got a higher rating, you are going to get more money through your till. So what we do and say to all businesses, if you've currently got a 0, 1 or a 2, or even if you have a 3, do work hard to improve your standards. You will have got an inspection letter at the end of your visit. Work through that and apply for a hygiene rating. What frustrates us more than anything is that when we do an inspection and it comes out as a 0, 1 or 2, there is more work done by ourselves to make sure that business does improve. But ultimately, if the business wants to improve their rating, they do need to request a hygiene rating rescore visit, and they don't. And so when you look at the stats on their website,
I'm with you.
It looks as though they're inspected quite a long time ago with a low rating, which isn't good for them or good for Luton.
Wow. So there's a lot of valuable information in those last couple of minutes. I mean, the initial statistics that you've cited is fantastic, because that's just puts things into perspective in terms of how many businesses, food businesses, you and your team have to actually manage and inspect. And the figures actually, as a percentage, sound positive, to be honest with you. When we're saying 8%, right? That is that kind of dangerous category, right? That really need that, further attention. And my question was going to be, I mean, is it a case that it's a voluntary an inspection that happens on behalf of the food outlets actually requesting, or is it something that it's below the standards and it's something that's on your books and something that needs to happen again, and so that to ensure compliance and minimum standards are met? How does the process work?
So basically, once a food business registers, we inspect it and we risk rate it, and from the risk rating, that determines their rating, hygiene rating. Obviously, if it's a 0, 1 or 2, then we will be programming revisits, and hopefully on the first revisit, the business will have done what was in the letter, and then we can look to see whether we can nudge up and improve their rating, or alternatively the business can apply formally to have their rating reviewed, and hopefully it will go up in the right direction. But there are some businesses, for whatever reason, that don't do the work. Perhaps their heart's not fully in their business, the owner's perhaps at arm's length, and they're not fully engaged, and then we can start to issue, for example, hygiene improvement notices, which require work to be done in a set timescale. And again, if that doesn't work, then we have to take the appropriate level of enforcement action to gain compliance. If on an inspection or a complaint investigation we find that there's active pest infestations, cockroaches, mice, rats, even flies, we have to take action to protect public health, and that's where we would immediately close a business. So our message, and it's great to be on the radio tonight to cascade this out to everyone, is do get a good, robust pest control contract in place with a really good provider. You can take advice and even get a contract from the council's traded service pest control, because it is an insurance policy. Ironically, people do get a bit shocked when they get the initial quote for a pest contract, but the cost of not having a robust pest control contract in place is going to be a lot more. So it is an insurance policy, but it's important as well that businesses don't just have a pest control contract that sits on the shelf and they leave the pest controller, to do their work, that it's a team effort, and, cleaning is happening on site. If the pest controller makes recommendations about structural improvements, that the food business operator does that as well. So I really would urge people to get advice from our pest control service by ringing the council, just to get some advice and to think about getting a contract. And the other important thing is to make sure that waste is properly disposed of, in bins, that there's adequate bins. We're not leaving, food waste and packaging outside, litters being disposed of by members of the public. When we talk about food premises, it's not just inside, but it's, behind, outside in the yard and at the back and the side, making sure all that's clean and clear. Wow. We haven't got old oil drums or old disused equipment. So real good spring clean and, clear out the clutter and let's all get a 5.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds quite detailed, and I can see someone who's venturing new into a business, and it's already a very expensive venture. As you set upon going into a new business enterprise, and then consider all of these additional costs. It can sometimes become a bit of a distracting point, and an area where people are probably trying to save a bit of money, and then that kind of results in these kind of violations and these kind of trends that we then ultimately see. But the message is that it's really not worth it, and you got to take that into consideration as a day one prerequisite, as opposed to something that we can push to aside and come back to later. When it's almost too late. In fact. And engage with the staff. Look at the standard of cleanliness. Maybe set up a WhatsApp group between the staff within the restaurant, and take pictures of good cleaning and where it needs a bit more cleaning, or it's really not being done. And people are at work for a long time in the day, and I'm sure they're not flat out serving customers. So when there's downtime, that's when cleaning should happen. Making sure you've got good ventilation to take the grease out of the kitchen, so it's then not resting on all of the equipment, which then is harder to clean. It's just simple measures, improving structure. We are seeing as well with the likes of Just Eat now, they won't, if anyone has a 0, they take them offline. They only want those with a 3 or more. And I think that is increasing compliance, because soon the business realises once that Just Eat account shut off, they're not getting the orders, and ironically then they ask us for a revisit. We talked earlier about that's very interesting,
stickers.
Isn't it?
It is. I think that's going to really help raise compliance. In Northern Ireland and Wales, it's actually a requirement by law to have to display your sticker, and I think after EU exit we'll see the Food Standards Agency move towards that becoming a requirement in England. So again, with us, taking more strong enforcement action now on some of these long-standing poor performers, plus the external pressures from the likes of Just Eat and the need to display your rating, I think the message is going to get through, and I think we, in Luton, we already are seeing that. I think sounds like a good plan, and it seems like you Liz, you and your team are definitely on top of
the game here, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's nothing more comforting. Yeah, I know the taste of the food is very comforting. Once we've bought something, I think wow, fantastic! It tastes really well. But it's actually going into a takeaway, going into a shop, going into a food place outlet, and just the general hygiene around you gives you a very positive feeling about the place, right? Now, the other problem is that whilst the external might give that, you don't know what's actually happening behind in the kitchen, and that's the problem, right? So that's the area which is obviously not visible to a lot of the customers. In some places, they make it very transparent, and you can actually see, through to the kitchen, you can see how the food is being prepared, and that obviously gives you an extra element of reassurance. But I do like the idea of that sticker or that certificate being out there firmly in the window, making it known. Here's where we stand when it comes to hygiene, and I get that that's not quite mandatory at this stage, and it is of course in the interest of the business. But if that is something that could almost be a big part of compliance, then I think that would definitely set a long way in terms of making sure who wants to put a sticker in the window which says I'm too. Right, and I think that's going to be an additional element which is going to really help achieve a good result.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually promoting all of our premises that get a 5 at the moment on our social media and council website. We're calling it Friday Fives. And it's great to see the comments that are being made. And again, if what we do is when a business is, especially the independents, achieve 5, it's a great celebration. And we've blown up a 5-board sticker and take pictures of the staff and the owner outside their shop and put that on our social media, and it's great to see. And wouldn't it be great if we could get whole streets that are all a 5 and really celebrate, because we've got some great food offerings out there. It's just making sure that the environment in which that food is prepared, like you say, is safe and healthy and clean.
Okay, brilliant. Liz Bailey, Commercial Regulatory Manager, Luton Borough Council, thank you very much for your time this evening. Great speaking to you, and have a lovely evening and a lovely weekend.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Fantastic, thanks Liz, thanks, bye-bye. Right, listeners, that was Liz Bailey, Commercial Regulatory Manager for Luton Borough Council. I know, of course, we had earlier Councillor Aslam Khan Saab, mashallah, fantastic for giving us a few minutes of his time from the airport to discuss a very pertinent subject matter, and that's, of course, hygiene, health, and our shops, food, places, and takeaways. Sometimes I can be a bit biased sometimes, and I think sometimes we've got the same culture or mentality sometimes of some of those food outlets that you see in Pakistan, right, or India or Bangladesh, whatever, right? So we can't quite have that mentality, guys, when it comes to food and hygiene. And of course, it's a lot more serious, right? Because I also think, people have become a lot more serious about this issue. There's so much allergies out there. There are so many, health and issues, stories out there that people are really becoming cognizant of the fact that this can actually, be quite detrimental to your businesses out there. So it's all in your interest to ensure that you're complying and you're making sure that you've got those high food hygiene standards and you're advertising that, and hopefully it's good for business too, right? Anyway, so that was a lighter topic that we were discussing. Mashallah, I've got my next panelist, my guest who's come into the studio. I won't introduce him quite yet. I'll introduce him after the commercial break, inshallah. But we're going to be discussing an interesting topic, right? It's very interesting for me because I'm not Lutonian, right? So I'm from the north, from Leeds. Let me share that with you. And I tell you, many years ago, 2001, when I first came to Luton, when I saw the prices of rent, this is 2001, right? Nisar Sahab, you want to listen to this, right? And coming from Leeds, I thought, wow, this is so expensive, right? I was used to paying, £200-300 for a house in 2001 in Leeds, and then I came to Luton, and it was like £500, £600. I thought, wow, this is too expensive. This is so expensive. How am I going to afford a rent like this? But let's fast forward to 2020. right? 2019, I forget, £500-600, right? I mean, you're gonna get a decent place. We're talking about good 1,000 plus, if not, close to that figure. The reason I'm discussing this story is, of course, Luton's been named in the top 5 most affordable commuter towns. And it's becoming a fast commuter belt. It's been a commuter belt for a long time. What are the impacts? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities that this brings to the town, right? That's what I'm going to be discussing, and you've already guessed it. I've already introduced it. I've got Mohammed Nisar Saab from Ideal Properties in the studio, and I'm going to be discussing with him because he is a real Lutonian, right? So he's seen Luton over the last couple of decades. I want to hear his experience. I want to get his perspective on things, and we're also going to be discussing with some from the council. So an interesting conversation for the next 20 minutes. When we come back from the commercial break, you are with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on Friday Night Live. 01582 481 822 is the number in the studio. If you've got a question for Nisar Saab, the number to call. 07779 481 822 for your SMS, WhatsApp messages. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on Luton Inspire FM 105.1 FM. This is Friday the 24th of January. We've just gone past 7:30 p.m. Last half an hour, last 25 minutes of the show for you this evening. Your last opportunity to get involved and share any of your particular thoughts on any of the stories that we've covered this evening, or even this new virus that has broken out in China. If you've got any particular thoughts on that, we didn't cover that story today, but maybe we might cover it next week just to see how let's see how the developments and how that progresses next week. But anyway, we are covering last story and a half, I'm going to say, because we've got a brief story we're going to cover right at the end. 01582 481 822 is the number here in the studio. 01582 481 822. And 07779 481 822. 07779 481 822 is the number for any SMS, WhatsApp messages, and we will take any SMS, WhatsApp messages this evening on the show. Right, just before the commercial break, I introduced to you my guest in the studio, so I'm gonna bring my guest on live now, and you can come closer, Nisar Saab, to the mic. So assalamu alaikum, brother Nisar. We've got brother Nisar here from Ideal Properties in the studio. You want to say salams to our listeners?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to yourself and all the listeners.
Fantastic, right? So you sound very comfortable and confident, man, and you're telling me this is the first time in the studio.
This is the first time.
I don't believe that, man. All right, so we're going to be covering a topic which is obviously very close to your line of business, and hence our request for you to come in, which you've kindly responded to. We've also got Sean Timoney, I believe, on the line. Sean, am I saying your name correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's Councillor Sean Timoney.
Sean Timoney, fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Deputy Leader of the Council with Social Responsibility for Investment Strategy and Economic Development is the introduction that I've been provided. Hopefully that's accurate. Right, so we're together to discuss an interesting topic, a positive topic, right? And that is Luton being named in the top 5 most affordable commuter towns, right? So I like the word affordable because, of course, it depends where you compare it against, doesn't it, right? So I gave my introduction earlier, which is coming from Leeds many, many years ago. I definitely didn't find it affordable. But I guess, Sean, coming to you firstly, it's a very positive story, firstly, for Luton Town, right? So that's great. And, of course, it also introduces its challenges and opportunities at the same time.
It certainly does, yeah. I did hear you mention about the cost when you were up in Leeds and the rental cost there and what the difference was here. Yeah. But for me, to have a positive story about Luton is fantastic because we do get a lot of negative press. Yeah. Luton's really had a lot of unfair press, so to have something positive like this is great. But you're right, it does bring its own challenges because Luton's always been a working town. It's been a place where people have come to find work, and they need accommodation to go with that that's reasonably priced, and they're finding that, and that's what that survey showed. But we need to make sure that we're not pricing our own people out and moving away from Luton. We do get some turnover of people in the town, but we want to make sure that everybody's kind of catered for. But it's brilliant because we have a lot of new businesses coming into the town, and it helps with our growth and our boosting our economy. So all positive.
Absolutely. So I think we all concur. I'm going to bring in Nisar Saab hopefully in a short while. I'll just let me listen to yourself initially. Positive story, I agree. But what about the challenges then around that, Sean? Because of course, I mean, being a commuter town and a more affordable commuter town than a lot of the other towns that surround London, right? It also then means it puts that additional strain on the town, its resources, its infrastructure, the limited, availability for quite a lot of people that are indigenous to the town and those that are coming out of the town. I mean, of course, you can't exclude anyone from coming in, but how are we addressing some of those challenges, and what are some of those challenges that you're seeing as a council?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are challenges because it means the more people that are coming into the town, the more demand on schools and the hospitals and all of our services are under greater demand. It means that you will have noticed around Luton lots of properties that were previously offices or shops or other buildings have become accommodation, because accommodation is a need in Luton. And that's the thing that people are investing in because they know they can make money from property that people are living in. But it does bring its challenges. So we need to make sure that we keep up with that. So there are lots of new projects that are coming along in Luton, including the new football ground that's going to have around about 500 or 600 residential units in it. You can see what's going on the old Vauxhall site in Kimpton Road. And then, of course, there's the future development at Junction 10, Newlands Park. Okay. So there's so much going on in the town that's going to provide facilities for people, places for them to go, places for them to eat, places for them to have entertainment. And that's the kind of thing that we really need to provide.
Okay. All right, Sean. Let me bring in Nisar Saab. So, of course, Nisar Saab is through and through Lutonian, right? And you've seen Luton develop over the last, we were just having a conversation earlier, 40, 50 years, right?
Certainly, yes.
Tell me about your experiences over the last couple of decades and where you see Luton at the moment, Nisar Saab.
Luton's been a very good town, great town for people, especially the people that came from abroad as, immigrants, or labour force that came from, say, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, West Indies. I remember that, there's so many opportunities, job opportunities, you'd be walking past and there'd be, vacancies, a big board outside the factories. But obviously, people have gone, they've gone places, it's fulfilled my dreams. I mean, I've achieved more than I could even dream of, to be honest with you. And I think even now, I mean, if people are willing to work, they can, still achieve their dreams. Because look at people. I mean, you can't get tradesmen, plumbers, electricians, mechanics, decent mechanics. There's so much opportunity for people to go and take an apprentice, and and there's quite a lot of opportunity even now. House prices, as you were saying earlier on, Leeds, yes, but then the house prices are cheap there as well. So you can pick up a house maybe 150,000 for a decent house.
Well, maybe some years ago, I was talking about, let's put it in context, 2001, right? So things have moved on even in Leeds considerably, depending on where you want to buy. But okay, so we've got a positive story here about Luton, right?
Luton,
Very positive.
It's worked for me and most of my friends.
Right, it's worked for you, most of your friends. Right, so from a real estate perspective, right, what are the challenges that you're seeing, right, as someone in real estate? Of course, it's very, affordable, for a lot of people are therefore coming into town. Are you finding a challenge around supply and demand from a Luton perspective, or do you think that currently there's enough out there on the market for the supply?
I think there is, yeah. There's, I mean, always has been. I mean, a couple of 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was quite a bit of demand. Prices went up on rental as well as, purchasing properties. The value of the properties went up. By quite a lot. It jumped. By say about 15-20% within a short time because there's a lot of demand.
Yeah.
But then as the demand died down a bit, they came back to what they were, and they actually they went down by further, probably about 10%. But then again, that happens every few years, every 10 years, every decade. You see, there's a change. And I don't think anybody's really lost anything.
Right.
I think people are still willing to work hard. There's plenty of jobs out there. Somebody wants to work.
Yeah.
There's plenty of you just can't get tradesmen. You can't get decent tradesmen. So there is opportunity there. But
and what about working with the council then, Nisar? I mean, of course, being in real estate, being in property, being in number of different lines of businesses. I don't know what other lines of businesses you're in. I mean, is there close cooperation and working with councillors and with the council? How are you finding that relationship and working together to address some of the let's harvest and let's yield, take best yield from the opportunities, but also some of the problems and the challenges around some of those areas?
I think councils have been very helpful. At the end of the day, they need to house people, and so do we. But there's you always get a bad apple. Even you get a bad agent, you get bad bad tenant, bad landlord. But doesn't overall, we've all. There's everybody's done well and it's positive.
Right.
It looks positive out there.
Very good. And Sian, I mean, what do you see as the immediate challenges for Luton to sustain this growth and this development and being an area which has been clearly earmarked as a place of choice for a lot of people who want to either come out of London and move somewhere more affordable, or it's the first time for someone to come on the outskirts of London and use it as a commuter belt?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
That's for Sion.
Sure, go on.
Sean. Yeah, it's for me. Yeah, I think it's exactly what your other speaker said. There's got to be affordable rent and there's got to be places to buy. But more than that, we need to offer more choice. We need to offer the opportunity for people to get on the property ladder by things like shared ownership. Offer properties that are for key workers like nurses and teachers and things like that. So we need to offer a wider range of choice. We do get sometimes criticised that there are loads and loads of flats in the town and not enough housing. But actually we need a lot of different types of properties, yes, but in the town centre a lot of people are commuting backwards and forwards from London. We need some aspirational type apartments. So people that are working in London, perhaps, but living in Luton, are spending their money in Luton and boosting our economy. So that's why, alongside all of this accommodation, you've got to have developments that are going ahead, like the ones from 2020, that are going to provide places where people can socialise and people can eat and people can have entertainment. And then on top of that, we're doing the town centre master plan, which is really going to be a big, bold look at what's going well in our town centre and what's not in the immediate town centre and what's not going so well. And let's look at how we can reconfigure that and make it work for everybody, because the town centre's really changed. I'm sure your other caller will definitely recognise this. I'm Luton born and bred, the same as him. You will see that the town centre, now there are a lot more accommodation units in the town centre, and a lot of those people don't have a lot of money. They may not have many places to kind of congregate and to meet, and so we're going to have to change our town centre to meet their needs. But I think it's all really, really positive stuff.
All right, Sean, Timony, thank you very much for joining us this evening on Friday Night Live, and thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Timony.
you, you too.
Sean,
Bye.
thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, that was Sean. I want to bring you into the conversation this hour a bit more. So, let Sean go and enjoy her weekend. Thank you. Thanks for her time. One of the challenges, right, she raised is this issue of property prices, right? I mean, I don't know if I don't think the property prices in Luton have dropped at all, or have they dropped, right? And this opportunity for people who want to get onto the ladder for the first time. I mean, the government's got its own initiatives, right? Firstly, in terms of property prices in Luton, I mean, do you see any relief in terms of those, becoming a bit more stagnant, a bit more stable, or do you continually see them, being, inclining and increasing? What's your current kind of feeling? What's been the trend, and what are the opportunities there for the first-time buyer, for example? What's available to a first-time buyer?
It is a bit difficult, but that difficulty has always been there. That used to be, like that even when we were buying, many years ago. If somebody's got a decent job, they can still go and. So, I mean, there's two of them with a couple of working. If they're earning, say, 50,000 between them, they'll get about £210,000 mortgage, and you can still get acquire a house, a two-bedroom, for about that, even less than that. We are selling one in Selborne Road. Needs a bit of work.
Hey, advertising now.
I'm just saying, and for about 165,000.
Right.
It's the probate, but there are still bargains out there if you look around.
Yeah.
And Kilnway, there was, I mean, very, very beautiful, flats built about 10, 15, 20 years ago, behind the main Tesco's.
Right.
And we were struggling to sell them for about, 175.
Right. Okay.
Two-bedroom apartments, and they got parking there as well.
Right.
So there's still,
You're saying that there are, options,
of
right?
course.
So you obviously have to, maybe go out the comfort zone, or maybe your ideal or preferred area that you may want to buy in. But there are other areas that you can consider, which are a bit more affordable. That's your point. And the other question that Sean was raising was the type of accommodation also. I mean, flats versus homes. Well, what's the trend here in Luton from your expertise, right? I mean, I see Leeds as an example. Whenever I go back every couple of months, right? I mean, the ratio of flats that are going up versus homes is incredible, because Leeds is a massive city, right? And very, very big university, and a lot of that is university plus professionals, right? Well, what's the trend that you're seeing here in Luton at the moment?
There are a lot of flats, being built at the moment. A lot of buildings, ex-offices, are being converted into a lot of flats. Obviously, there's around the town, you're never going to have enough space to build houses. So you can only build flats. And the majority of the commuters or people who people without children or young couples, it's easier for them to commute to London, from near the town centre. Hence, they tend to go for flats. But when they have a family, there's still availability out there, houses, if somebody wants to buy a house. But obviously not going to be in the town centre, because if you buy a house in the town centre, parking problems as well. And majority of the people have one or two cars, so that's another plus point, that people, for the people who are developing making flats, because a lot of people, would not be able, commuters would just buy near the stations,
exactly,
or in the town centre, whereas he's motor is accessible, easily accessible, and so the stations, train stations and bus stations.
Right. And what's the trend at the moment? What are you seeing? Are you seeing? Is it still a buoyant market? Is it still busy, or are you seeing a bit of a slowdown in the market?
It is. It's slowed down quite. A lot of people are not committing. They're looking. I mean, this Brexit scare, etc. I mean, I personally. People come and ask us, what do you think is going to happen? We don't know ourselves. But I don't think it's going to get any worse. It's just a scare. Still the same amount of people are still going to live here.
Yeah.
The jobs are still there. Factories are not closing, or opportunity is still there. So, if somebody has to sell a house. Somebody needs to buy one. If you're going to, and property has gone down. To be honest with you, I think at least 10% in Luton over the last couple of years. Yeah.
I mean, last couple of months. Yeah. I am a contractor, right? So I work in the city contract, and then I finished my last contract a couple of months ago, and a lot of contractors are saying that they've been saying the same, which is the market's really dead at the moment, right? Nothing's happening, right? And you're sending off your CVs and it's like it's going into a black hole. It's just disappeared somewhere, right? And of course, I mean, the last couple of months have been very volatile, right? End of the year, you got the Brexit, you got elections, you got a regulation coming in, and now you're just coming out of that at the moment, and there's still a lot of that, still hanging on, right? Has that had a real impact on real estate and the prices? I mean, it's interesting that you're saying that you think that it's a bit is dropped a bit. The prices have dropped a bit, right? Because at least in the area that I live and I see around me, I see a house go up, for sale, and I see it snap up pretty quickly. Right. Yes. Even though there's a couple of properties there, I see it pretty quickly. Is that just because it's more of a coveted area?
It is. Yes. I mean, in Old Bedford Road and sort of Manton Drive, the areas you always get a lot of people waiting for properties to come up in that area, so they can actually go for them. It's overall majority of the Luton price, there's quite a bit of availability, and even the rents have gone down as well. What they were 2 years ago.
Really?
Yes, they've gone down.
So more of a reason for people to move into Luton. By the sounds of what Nisar Saab's telling me. Yeah. All right. So very positive, good story there. I mean, of course, the article also cited that some of the cheaper commuter travel fares from Luton. I mean, I only see the fares going up every year, but of course everything's in comparison with the other fares from the other towns, and it's a lot cheaper than some of the other towns. But and you're right, at the end of the day, what's the choice? Either you go to Watford or you go to some of the other boroughs outside London,
twice as much. You pay twice as much rent there,
which is twice
as much for a property to acquire.
Wow. All right, Nisar Saab, thank you very much for your time this evening. Lovely having you here, and you know what? Let's make this more of a regular thing. It's good to get.
Thank you very much for having me on.
I'll get your feedback, man. Make sure you're comfortable and you're good with that, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
All right, so that's Nisar Saab from Ideal Properties sharing his expertise on an article that we were covering, which is Luton named in the top 5 most affordable commuter towns, and what that means in terms of opportunities and challenges for Luton. Thank you very much, Nisar Saab. All right, listeners, you're with me, Hafiz Sha'ban. We're in our last almost 4 or 5 minutes of the show. I'm going to be just covering a last final story. I've got a new guest that's just joined me in the studio, and I'm going to ask the guest to also help me with the story, right? So is it brother Zuhaj Zaman?
Duhaj Zaman, yeah.
Duhaj Zaman. All right, fantastic. Okay, bro. Jazakallah khair for joining us in the studio, right?
No problem.
So we've got these, is it Asian Community Forums kickoff?
Yeah, Asian Community Forums, the FA are proposing. But just before Nisar Saab goes away, I just want to thank him personally, because I'm part of Luton United Grassroots Football Club.
Right.
And he sponsored one of our teams.
Oh, fantastic.
And that just shows how much he's kind of like contributed to community football, which have been, over the last 20 years, and we really need people like himself who've got the businesses that want to contribute to community and get involved.
Positive, fantastic. Thank you very much, man. It's good that you made that known, mashallah. But that's what I said. We need people from the community to come into the studio and participate in these conversations. So you're a Luton Town Academy coach. Well, when they told me Asian community, I thought this is going to be some kind of a arts awards or some Bollywood Asian community awards. But obviously, we're not discussing either of those.
No.
Different, what is this, man?
The UK's population, there's in terms of Asians, there's 8 million of us in the UK.
Wow.
And just alone in Luton, 30% of our population is Asian. So it's a FA initiative that's been going on for 6 years, trying to promote more inclusion of Asians and, give them the aspiration to be not only involved in grassroots, but in football in general, trying to get more prospects through.
Right. So the battle that I'm seeing on the football pitches at the moment is a very uphill battle, man. I mean,
there's challenges.
There's huge challenges, right?
There's loads of challenges. I think culturally, us as Asians, we put those barriers in front of us, and I can appreciate and understand probably a generation or 2 generations ago, those challenges there. But I think now that we're approaching, where our community is embedded into British culture more, then I think there's more opportunity and adaptability.
So we've managed to convince our parents that it's football and not cricket.
Yeah, well,
and then and then once we've convinced them it's football and not cricket, then it's actually getting, and we've got plenty of talent out there.
Definitely,
right?
Definitely,
but then it's a matter of getting that talent developed recognised, and an opportunity to nurture that even further. And I think that's where the next hurdle is, because in cricket we've made it through, right? So we've got a number of prominent cricketers representing England, but in football we're very far from that.
I think there's issues also with cricket with Asians now, in terms of, yes, they play, but they're not holding on to those Asians that play, so they're not getting them through either.
Right. So we've got about a minute and a half left, right? So FA is taking some kind of grassroots initiative. What is it trying to do?
So it's trying to push forward more Asian inclusion. So they've kicked off on Monday. They kicked off with the first round of the roadshow in Luton. So they're going to go around various other places with high Asian population to try and kind of promote and say what initiatives and what they've been doing to try and push forward. But I think for our community, the first port of call is, look, join the local club and start getting involved with the local clubs. There's a number of us that really need good volunteers to just support in any capacity, really. There's all sorts of things that they could get themselves involved, and the first thing they need to do is just have those conversations.
So, I mean, is this something genuine that you're seeing from the FA? You think that's going to get
I think it's genuine, but the outcomes for it is that, they can push everything towards it. It's like you take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it, so you need to make sure that the community buys in. And just Luton Town themselves, they've really kind of supported the initiative, and they're really looking to promote it. But it requires the community to say, yes, we want to believe in it, and we want to take part.
And the community is buying it. I mean, you get plenty of Asians, sending their kids, attending football 2-3 times a week, right? So it's not that they're not buying into it.
Exactly. Like, look, I'm one of the academy coaches at Luton, so you got to commit 3 times a week and a game day on the weekend. Right. So that, if you're telling me they're already doing that, then there's no reason why talent can't come through, really.
All right, fantastic. Very, very quickly, any stars, any names that we should look out for in the near future that you're aware of that might be representing Liverpool anytime soon?
Liverpool?
Yeah.
You mean Luton? Liverpool. There's plenty out there. I think it would be unfair to kind of pinpoint anyone.
Okay. Lovely speaking to you, Zaman.
Thank you.
Luton Town Academy coach. Unfortunately, we're out of time. And until next week, it's Assalamu alaikum from me, Hafiz Sha'ban, and brother Nisa here in the studio, and brother Zuhaj Zaman. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We stream our daily broadcast on inspirefm.org. You'll find all our daily updates on our social media at Inspire FM Luton.